everyone, and welcome. Special welcome to the engineers, data leaders, IT directors, VPs, and CTOs joining us today, particularly those from mid-market and rapidly scaling companies. So you're likely here because you're feeling the pain. Your business is growing fast, your SaaS stack is expanding, but keeping critical data like Salesforce and PostgreSQL and Sync is becoming a major bottleneck. You've probably outgrown basic tools or manual processes, and your lean engineering teams are drowning in integration, maintenance, and technical debt. I'm Lindsay, your host for this 30-minute live demo, real-time data synchronization between Salesforce and PostgreSQL, engineer to engineer. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll show you Stacksync hands-on, a solution designed specifically for companies like yours. Our goal, demonstrate how you can configure enterprise-grade bidirectional real-time sync in minutes, reclaim that 30 to 50% of precious engineering bandwidth, and empower your teams to focus on innovation, not integration firefighting. Leading the demo today is Ruben, our CEO, who will be sharing his screen and walking us through the platform from a user and value perspective. Providing deeper technical insights along the way is Alexis, our CTO.
Thank you, Sam, for hosting. Looking forward to have this demo.
Thank you so much. Let's get started without waiting.
Great. Ruben will drive the demo, and Alexis will add key technical details. And then we'll have 10 minutes for Q&A at the end.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Cool. So thank you so much for joining here. So my name is Ruben. I'm co-founder and CEO at Stacksync. So Stacksync, in a nutshell, powers real-time and bidirectional sync between enterprise systems and databases. We also power workflow automation for operational workflows. And so, I'm very excited to actually showcase this to you today with my co-founder, Alexis, and actually answer like all the deep technical questions that the crowd might have. So Lindsay, how should we go ahead about this?
So to kick things off, from your perspective, talking to customers, what's the core problem that Stacksync solves, especially for these fast growing companies?
So for our customers, basically like the major pains they're actually having is that they are dealing with very messy APIs. So they have to deliver very large CRM integration or ERP integration project under tight deadlines. They're often, let's have they are under capacity, and there is like a lot of complexity that the people don't know. So please, the engineers have to open the documentation, read about all of these intricacies of the APIs actually, and make something happen, which is robust, right? So make something which is 80% reliable is actually easy, but something which is 100% reliable, which is like always, working on production, which is production grade, enterprise grade software and integration, that's very hard. And this is where most of the work happens. So Stacksync helps actually teams actually deliver more with the same or even less headcount, and really have this experience where they don't have to deal with all the complexity and reinventing the wheel all the time about their integration, and can just streamline an experience. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, to build up on what Ruben just said, the core value of Stacksync is really for enterprise workflows, for critical workflows. Doing like an integration, Salesforce to Postgres, that works 70% of the time. Like you can hire a consultant for it, there is no problem for it. Very cheap labor could do it. Now the problem is like, do you need a critical implementation? Do you have a critical workflows that need to be real-time, that need to be up constantly? For example, you have business operation in your teams that will be like impacting a stopped if the pipeline is done for 1 hour, something like this. If you miss event for 1 hour, does it have direct consequences on your business? You lose money. For example, if we have a customer is using NetSuite and is syncing them with the transaction and the invoices. So let's say the record does keep like you miss like actual revenue. Do you have this kind of critical pipelines for which you need to have a solid infrastructure, a solid base where you can build on top of it? And that's why we're here. We're here to help your team have a solid base on which they can build the business logic. All the dirty infrastructure, all this dirty pipelining, we're here to make sure it's stable and just works.
Thanks, guys. That perfectly frames the challenge. Okay, Ruben, the stage is yours. If you could share your screen and show us how Stacksync makes connecting Salesforce and PostgreSQL simple and secure.
Absolutely. Actually, right now, so Stacksync powers two products, right? The bidirectional sync and the workflow automation, where, for example, let's say whenever something happens in your sync, you can actually say, hey, Stacksync, when you see a contact which is created in Salesforce, please do this workflow. I send a DocuSign, I send a lead to that new account, I send a Slack message, etc. So Stacksync can power really this all automation. So actually now I'm going to just share my screen, and we're going to do this demo in 2 different steps. So the first step will actually be to create a bidirectional sync between Salesforce and Postgres. And the second step will be actually to extract events out of what is happening within the sync and within our data, in our database, in our Salesforce, to actually trigger some workflows and actually see what's possible. For example, from logging to actually building a custom business logic, which actually fits your business and fits your processes, where your business people actually work and live daily. So let me share my screen actually. And so I'm going to use the second screen here, and you should be able to see pretty much everything.
Okay, we can see it.
Can you see it? Perfect. I'm going to hide this. So here is my screen, right? So actually, this is a very familiar interface that you have in front of you. This is Salesforce, where your business team work and live daily. And this is actually a database where engineers, for example, say they work and, they build apps on top of this, they build analytics, they build everything. So this database today we're going to use is going to be a Postgres database, but it could be anything such as like a Salesforce, MongoDB, Oracle DB, MySQL, BigQuery, and etc. So the first step is to actually create a bidirectional sync, is to say, I want to authorize Stacksync to access to my Salesforce and to my database, and then bridge the gap. So I'm going to head straight to my Stacksync interface, and I'm going to click Create a New Sync. When I create a new sync, the first step is to let Stacksync access my Salesforce and to my CRM. So here, for example, I can just create a new connection, or let Stacksync, or actually have Stacksync, connect to already a pre-configured connection. This is how you can actually work asynchronously with your team. For example, you can have your CRM admin log into Stacksync and authorize Salesforce, and an engineer configures the sync on their end. Then, second step, I'm going to synchronize my Salesforce, my Postgres instance. So here, it's very easy to configure. I can just add my credentials, Stacksync support SSL, SSH, IP whitelisting, so all the secure protocols, which actually your team already uses. So it really fits your security workflows and protocols. But today, I'm just going to use a connection which already pre-configured, to save some time here. So now that my sync is actually my Salesforce, Stacksync has access to my Salesforce and Postgres, I can see here that Stacksync suggests to me to sync all the Salesforce objects we have. So it's like all the standard and custom objects are supported, and you can even see here custom object at the end. So Stacksync can either map to a table which is already existing into your database, if you have a custom schema that you would like to have with your custom property names and field names. But Stacksync can also create a new table for you based on the schema of what Salesforce has. So you don't need to configure anything in your database. Stacksync will just go ahead and create a perfect table with perfect data types and perfect field names directly for you. Here, for example, I'm going to choose to select my contacts, my accounts, maybe my contacts, as well as my opportunities, right? Just for the sake of this demo. Stacksync can synchronize one way, the other way, or two ways. Today, for the sake of this demo, I'm gonna show the full power of bidirectional sync, but you can really choose whatever you want here. And so once my tables are synchronized, right? And Alexis, just feel free to add anything if I'm missing something. Here, I have now the same step as before, but now it's not to choose which tables I'm gonna sync, but it's actually to choose which field I'm gonna sync. Stacksync already has a pre-configuration which actually suggests to you the best mapping. So for each table, you're gonna have all the fields. And for example, if mailing city is actually not something you are not interested in, so you can actually just choose not to sync it. And that's pretty much it. Now you can just go ahead and create your base. So once your sync is going to create, Stacksync will go into your database, create the tables that you have defined to be created, other tables that you want to map, and that's pretty much it. So now your sync will actually be created, and just work 100%. And so as Alexis, you mentioned, right? So actually here I just switched on the sync, right? So actually I have 3 tables. Now I'm just going to head to my database. I'm going to refresh my schema. So I'm going to take a couple of seconds. And now I'm going to see that, Stacksync created a few tables already in the past. So account, contact, and opportunity. And if I open a table, right, I can see my data is already there, right? So here I have 26 accounts, contacts, and opportunities, right? So here I have 23 accounts. If I go to my Salesforce, I have 23 items as well. So data is very fast, right? So you can also go into your sync statistics, and if you refresh here, you can see the count of data on both sides, and you can see everything is consolidated, and you have the same amount of data on both sides of your sync. Now the best, about Stacksync is that really this bidirectional sync that when you modify something on one side, it's going to modify the other, and vice versa. So now I'm just going to try to demo real quick how to create new record from your database, right? So now I'm going to go to my accounts. I'm going to create a new account called, I'm just going to call it maybe whatever company I can think of. For example, let's say Stacksync. Actually, is there already a Stacksync here? Yeah, Stacksync 2, right? I'm going to create a new company. That's how I create an account. And so now if I go into my Salesforce and I just refresh a page, actually I should see 24 items, and Stacksync 2 is actually just right there. So notice that Stacksync actually did not because Salesforce is the one who should give you the ID. Stacksync will backfill the ID once the record has been inserted into Salesforce. So Stacksync will maintain this consistent state at all times. And this also works with formula fields, system fields. For example, let's say the created time, and this kind of elements. All the default fields, etc., will backfill. So your data is always consistent in real time. And so now if I just go to my Salesforce and I say, okay, Stacksync 2 now, it's all about being like a partner or let's say a press for us, for some reason. I just modify the data here. And now if I go back to my database, actually, so press should appear here. I'm going to refresh and now I see press, right? So, this is extremely fast. It's like really bidirectional sync. And this is just how it works. And now it works here. So now I can modify the entire column over millions of records per minute and per second even, and Stacksync will sync it.
So now what we just saw, and what Ruben is showing us, is that you can modify anything on your Postgres and it updates Salesforce instantly. So that's great, but what does it mean for your team, right? What it means is that you don't need to use the Salesforce API anymore. Rotating the token, like handling all the HTTP error, like optimizing for the right API based on your batch load, like all this kind of like dirty work, it's just done. Basically now you have your Postgres, which is a tool that your engineers use on daily basis, is extremely powerful, extremely expressive. And now you can just use it. They already have access to it. They just use it. And then they have access to all the Salesforce data and can manipulate it. You just need to tell your team what's the business logic, and they will do the last mile effort to implement it. And that's it. You don't waste any more like months fighting with Salesforce API, and managing all this stuff. It just works. And that's the magic about Stacksync. It just works. Like you can talk to your Postgres as you were talking to Salesforce, but without the hustle.
Exactly. And so here I can synchronize. So we have some clients, which run kind of heavily on Stacksync and synchronize across 600 Salesforce tables, which each of them, like the biggest one contains 100+ millions of records. Stacksync just works seamlessly. So you don't have issue with pagination. You don't have issue with scalability. Just the data which you have in Salesforce is in your database, and you can build any internal tooling on top of this data. Any analytics, dashboards, you can build operational workflows, right? So where every time, there is a new, for example, customer product usage, you would actually update, last connected, customer last login at, and you can have real-time update of this. So when a customer calls you on the phone, you can say, okay, I can see exactly what you are doing in real time. So every time a customer clicks, you have a log appearing in Salesforce. So this is all the things that you can do really explicitly within a database, and which do not require you to have any Salesforce API knowledge. So now we are actually manipulating here at scale and in real time, like Salesforce data, and we didn't even touch a single time the API. That's the magic, right? So yeah, that was about creating the first sync, which is very easy.
Great, incredibly fast, and maintains focus on security, which is exactly what the customers want and they need.
So absolutely. So now basically the next step is to say, hey, now, okay, so now I have a bidirectional sync, right? So now my developers can actually access my sync and access my database and modify this very fast. So what if I actually have different tools? Now I use Salesforce for sales. I use HubSpot for marketing, and I use some other tools like NetSuite for my ERP. Can actually my developers follow the same pattern to integrate? Yes. The answer is yes. So Stacksync support mini connectors. For example, let's say HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho, Pipedrive, all the main CRMs on the place, right? Atcho as well. And also all the ERPs, such as NetSuite, SAP, and more, right? So actually no matter what your business enterprise system stack is, or what your database stack. So now if you have MongoDB, if you have Snowflake, if you have your BigQuery, it would actually be the exact same flow. So actually, like, there is nothing to learn. It's just all in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what another point that I would like to emphasize here is like, it seems easy, right? The first time we usually do the demo, people are like, oh, it's so easy. Why do we need Stacksync, right? For example, just to connect to your database, right? Like your database is not something that is like on the corner of the street, like that you can just send a message to spread. It's accessible, right? Like you need to connect to it through the right security practice, right? Same for Salesforce. Like it's data that live outside of your VPC, right? So you need to build all the security measure to make sure it's secure and follow if you are SOC 2 compliant or if you're HIPAA compliant. There's a ton of like details that you need to make sure you are following, right? For example, for Postgres, like Ruben just use the already set up connection, right? But let's say the Postgres is inside your VPC, right? And you need the database is most certainly private if you're SOC 2 compliant, and so you don't want to expose anything public, right? So you might need a private link, for example, or to create a VPN, to create for an AWS transit gateway. There are many potential ways of doing it, which all have their pitfalls. But with Stacksync, we support all the industry standard security authentication protocols. So you just need to use to pick the one that your team is used to work with. And that's it. As you say, I want to connect like this. They do the same setup as usual as they're aware used to. And that's it. It's super easy. They don't need to create anything custom. It's super industry standard.
Absolutely. And as Alexis, you are mentioning, this is absolutely right. So what's very complex is its customization, right? So when you buy a CRM, the CRM can do a lot of things by itself, right? But the hard piece of the CRM is actually like a CRM needs to fit your business processes, and your business processes is a absolute core DNA of your company. So it reflects exactly how you do business, how you're more performant than your competitors, etc. So that's why you need to customize a CRM. You need to customize an ERP to your business. And so this customization is what takes you the real extra mile. So everything which is custom takes a lot of effort. So Stacksync brings back this customization to a common denominator. Well, instead of using like Salesforce API, NetSuite API, you'll just actually be able to use a database that your developers already use and love, and integrate within their product already every day. So Stacksync brings back something which is custom and which is different to you, actually a language that you already know. For security practices, the way you connect to your different apps and to your database, to your different IP whitelisting, etc. These are all the standard protocols, the industry standard protocols that your team already know and uses. And so Stacksync is not one more tool, it's actually one less tool. And so now, like a lot of customers tell us about, bringing the power of this bidirectional sync in real time, even further. For example, they tell us, hey, Ruben, I have now this sync, but actually I would like to know exactly what changed every time that something happens. So what to do? So in this case, basically Stacksync also launched a feature called triggers. So triggers is a very cool feature which actually enables you to filter for events, to sync events, and actually direct them somewhere else. For example, here I'm going to say, hey, when there is a record which is created or updated on table account, right? And the change comes from, let's say, Salesforce or Postgres or just both apps, right? I want to actually send this to a workflow or just insert it into my database, right? So what can we do? So in this case, basically Stacksync has a tool called workflow automation. Workflow automation helps you build any sort of workflows that you want. And for example, here, what you're going to say, we're going to create a webhook which receives the events out of this sync and transform them and insert them into the database, into your database. And so here I already prepared, a table called changelog Salesforce sync, which is going to actually welcome all of the events which happen within our Salesforce. So here I'm going to say, send changelog to DB. So this is just one workflow, and that's pretty much it actually. So now Stacksync will expose to me directly one webhook trigger. And so this webhook trigger actually will be something which I'm going to be able to say, okay, it should have a record property, which is actually an object, which is going to include, the record itself, and it's a required field. And this I'm going to have right? And changes is also an object which will contain only what changed. And this is required, right? So now I'm going to save, and so if I just copy this curl and I'm going to paste this into my terminal, I will actually have like, an immediate response. And here I will be able to see, in my logs that I have one request which took 29 milliseconds and where I have like empty changes and empty records. Exactly, this is exactly what I sent. What happened now? Yeah, actually, I'm going to use exactly this query and I'm going to put it here in my workflow. So every time there is the event of a record which is created into accounts, I'm going to send this back into my workflow. And so here, what I'm going to have is I'm going to use I'm going to use a record, right? So I'm going to add the record here, and here I'm going to add changes, and that's about it. So here I'm going to use the Postgres labels. I'm going to add, send a log to change log in DB. I'm going to create a trigger. So what this trigger will do now is that every time now it's deployed, every time I'm going to actually make a modification on my accounts table. So here I'm going to send to customer. I'm going to change it to integrator. I'm going to commit. So I'm going to commit. And now basically the change will be detected. It's going to sync to my Salesforce. So here I can see my Salesforce, Ford here. Actually, I changed Ford to being an integrator. And now if I go into my workflow, I would actually say that there is a second workflow which got triggered. And now I have, so Ford is an integrator, and I have like the entire record. So I have the entire record and only the field which changed. Alex, maybe you want to take it over because it's an extremely powerful feature that we can actually detect exactly what changed and not tell you like any other CDC engine, right? That this record changed. I think it's not telling you this record only changed, right? But this particular field within that record also changed.
Yeah. Here again, let's imagine what would happen if you don't have Stacksync, because here it seems very easy, but what would you build? Like if tomorrow you have your data engineer teams that need to sync data, like you would most certainly, from what we see in the industry, build a regular job that is being called once every hour that read everything or try to do some incremental stuff and just dumps everything, right? The fact that here you can have really a very fine-grained analysis to know which field change is very important. Let's give an example. Let's say you know that we have, for example, one of our customers, it's a transporting company, and let's say now the status of the delivery is like blocked because of X reason, right? Let's say you got your car that is being shipped through the US, and now the car is being stuck somewhere, right? You want to inform like the customer that the data is now like stuck somewhere, right? You need to take a chain of action to inform the customer. You want to inform like the customer support team, that will call the customer. You also want the customer to receive an email, and once they log in on your platform to know what's the problem. It's really like a chain of operations that you need to take in that case. And so through this, now that you know what exactly changed, you could say, oh, if this event happened, you need to change all, you need to take all that chain of operation. And for example, what this company currently has, like they don't have this, right? So sometimes the car is just lost in the middle of the US. The customer calls, oh, how is the delivery of my car, And nobody knows actually, right? Because the data is not syncing in real time between the systems. So the transportation team, they use NetSuite, right? So the data is there, right? They updated it, right? But since the customer support use Zendesk or Salesforce, and then you have the built-in in-house app, which is built on top of Postgres. Since these systems are not updated, the data is not there. So just tell your customer, oh, the car is somewhere in the US. We'll come back to you, right? While with Stacksync, have real-time data transfer between all the systems. Like this problem of having all these data silos is now fixed for you. So you just need really the last milestone, the last mile that you need to do is to build a business logic. All the infra is done. And here we just talk about sending data. We even didn't go yet into like all the scalability issue, right? That we'll go for,
Absolutely. And so there is like scalability issues, infra management issues, authentication issues. I mean, like we add issues as we go on this demo. And the business logic is the only thing that we want to actually save. That we need to configure. And for example, here, in the demo, the goal was to actually bring to the change log, right? To change log SF sync, to actually bring everything that changed into this database, right? So for now, you just have like a workflow which is called, so our sync calls a workflow every time, right? So here, for example, we have like the last two triggers. And so what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to actually want to add this into my database. So now I'm going to do this. I'm going to scroll to Postgres. I'm going to say, okay, insert records. And what we're going to insert, right? It's like insert record in changelog table. So now the goal is just to actually, it's really just to have like this data sent to this very simple table where we have like a column changes, a record changes, like in my payload.
Yeah, let's say for security, you need to know which person updated what. In NetSuite or in Salesforce, right? You have these features, right? But know that you have way more tools. You also have your Snowflake, your Postgres. Sometimes you have some automated jobs. It's way harder to track all these events, right? And you need to do this for regulatory purposes, right? It's like part of your security requirements. So here, what we're going to do is that every changes which is happening, we're monitoring days from where it comes, at what time, and for which record, so that it's super easy to track back if something went wrong or for your security policy.
Exactly.
And this just in a few clicks. This is not like, oh, we need my team 2 weeks on this or a 1 month project. This is just like a morning project. You come to the office on the Monday morning, you just, oh, team, like, we didn't use it for security. Can you do it by the hour? Yeah, sure. This is done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you finally ship value to your customers, which is what every company should be about. Like, if you come to a new office, you should not ask your marketing team to build the electricity stuff, do all the water stuff. You just ask them to sit on the desk and do their marketing, what you are paying them for, what they are specialized for. And with Stacksync, you can finally ask your team to build what your company is supposed to build, right? To ship the
100%.
customer value, not dirty pipeline.
Exactly. So it's like really laser focusing on exactly what's important for your business and not actually like doing like all of this reinventing the wheel and doing what actually does not belong to such job. So here in this case, like I just choose, which database I want to direct it to, my schema, my table. So changelog SF sync is the same table name as I have here. And so now actually I'm going to insert the body, right? So the body of it actually will be, I'm just going to say, I have my changes, my records. Actually, I'm just going to insert this body, right? So that's what I'm going to, in my body, I've changed the record. And actually this table like welcomes like, just waits for like 2 JSON columns. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just add this body. So now I have the input and the body. I just save. And now actually this should be saved already. So Stacksync also has a very powerful feature, which is called replay, right? Which actually enables you to select a workflow and just click, okay, I'm going to replay itself, the failed modules or just failed modules independence. And I'm going to replay the whole workflow because, I just can't retrigger, this is past event. So now if I go into my database, I should just set and we should see it here from here. And there is a log. So now if I just trigger it for in real life, I'm going to, let's say, modify this data. I'm going to put like, okay, that's one of the modification, for my flow. Actually, my ID is playing around. And so now, I have added this. This data will actually sync into, if I go into Ford here, or is Ford here? It's here. I will see that actually here, description is okay. In my workflow I created, my workflow was triggered in 400 milliseconds, and now I have, in my changelog table, I have my logs. And so what happens now, we say, Ruben, what do you do? What do you want to do? Now I want to actually scale. So actually I'm going to say like all of this field actually should be triggered with like a value of 1000, right? Because that's a new system that we have. And actually I'm just querying everything. So it seems okay, exactly. So now I committed into my database. All of this data will actually change and streamline to Salesforce. And so if I go here in my workflow, actually I can see like many workflows just executed. So here I can see all my changelog just appeared. And all of this is like just real time. And the very big advantage of this is that you can actually see now at scale, it's very hard to see from this small window because you're developing. So what you're going to do, you're going to go head to the log explorer. That's what Stacksync really gives you the power and the tools of actually enabling your data to be visualized at scale. So here actually I have like, I should not have logs, but actually I have many workflows which are here. And here if I want to say, I want to select them, I want to select a bunch of workflows, these 4 workflows, I want to select them. Or maybe even like, select 6 of them. I just click replay 6 workflows. This 6 workflow will just replay in the background because, I want to replay some actions. And so in my data, now I should see like much more logs just appearing, 6 more logs. And everything is extremely fast. So that should be, like exactly the focus that your team should have in building laser focused, right? So here we also have like a few errors. Let me retry to see what this data is. Actually, so here you can say exactly how does this happen. Now you have an error in your workflow pipeline. I don't know about this. Like this is just part of the workflow. So here actually I have like record null. So actually here what I can do, I can actually fix the workflow and just replay fail modules only. So this is going to only replay my workflow. And here I can see here in my logs, which actually I have 6 errors. So now I can filter and I can say, okay, give me all the errors between 9 and 9:15 this morning because I know I have an outage and I want to replay these ones. So now once you can select these ones, right? So you can have thousands, so you can just filter them and select them all. So actually I can filter, please only give me the error workflows. Just select this one only. Actually, I have like just too many.
So why does this matter? Let's say now Salesforce has a node page or your database has a node page. Or another thing we have often is like the business team in Salesforce like change some rules, some validation rules, and now you cannot insert the record anymore. Right? Or same for other systems.
Mm-hmm.
So what would happen in a typical scenario? In typical scenario, like you just make a SQL query or like a Salesforce query. The record fails to be inserted. Maybe if you did a okay job, you have like a fallback queue where all the records that you could not create in Salesforce are created, and someone will need to manually insert them later on. But here, basically, what happens is that Stacksync makes sure that there is no silent issue. We keep track of everything, and it's super easy for your dev team, once they're aware that there is a new field in Salesforce or like a new format, you can, once on Salesforce side, it has been fixed, you just need to retry, and that's it. Everything will be retried one by one. And let's say now you had the chain of operation for several systems. Let's take back the example of before. We have Zendesk, email, and Salesforce. Right? You don't want to reinsert or to re-update and the other systems, right? So you don't want the entire workflow to replay. You just want the failed model and the dependencies, if any, to replay. And with Stacksync, you can do it just in a few clicks. And the fact that you can take action like this on your data super easily, save an enormous amount of time for your team. And here it was like, okay, maybe you have 10 records, you can send a CSV, super easy, you export the database in CSV or something like this, right? But say now you have millions of records. Like we have a customer, they display ad on the TV, and sometimes when at the peak time, they have like maybe like millions of leads that they want to insert. So how do they do if that fails? Which sometimes happens for some reason in their system. Like that's just crude, right? But with Stacksync, you can just in a few clicks, there was a problem, we just replay, done, end of it. It's just like we just want to make you successful, like to just make it work. It should just work. You should not require a PhD about infrastructure to just like ship data between systems. It should be like, it's not normal.
Absolutely. So here, all of these options that you could actually have, and we didn't talk about also power of Stacksync, right? So in terms of like issue management, replay of the workflow. So here we couldn't like demo like entirely the whole workflow because I want to be mindful of time here. So we will do our suite of webinar includes issue management, workflow replay and going more in depth into these features, scalability, and how do we actually scale to millions of records. So this is going to be part of our our following suite of webinars. And so you're really welcome to actually follow up on this series.
Great. Well, thanks for walking us through those demos, showing us really powerful capabilities for companies as they're planning for growth and scaling up. Before we go to Q&A, Ruben, could you quickly do an overview of the core, quickly summarize the core value proposition for the companies in our audience?
Absolutely. So the thing that we have to actually remember is that like leadership is exposed to failure because like they have to deliver very large project in very small time and with lower capacity, and sometimes even like the team is not really so qualified to actually carry the work. So to actually reduce your dependencies on consultants, reduce your spend, increase the speed at which you deliver, Stacksync enables you to deliver project with the same or less headcount, same or less dependency on budget, on competencies, right? Not to have like your NetSuite admin who leaves and actually you're screwed because this is the only person who knew how the script worked, right? So Stacksync enables you to streamline this workflow and actually to expose the leadership less, enables developers to reach their targets and deliver their OKRs. And this is all what counts, making something people want, focusing on exactly the customization and the business logic, and all what is infrastructure, all what is, error handling and all this. This is actually streamlined by Stacksync. So you only focus on what makes you unique, on fitting these workflows to your unique business use case, right? So basically, the very big value proposition of Stacksync is actually to save on cost, increase your time to market, and actually make you walk in confidence and in peace towards being independent of owning your own systems. That's the most important. No dependency on consultants, on outdated toolings, like there are some other tools like Celigo and Boomi, who didn't receive an update in the last 15 years. And so this drives your company backwards, and Stacksync is all about changing that.
Excellent. Great. How about now we can open the floor for questions?
Do we have some questions?
We have about 10 minutes for Q&A.
All right. So I see someone from the stage asking about will it be possible to follow up on the issue management feature that Stacksync has specifically for the bidirectional sync. So yeah, Stacksync has some issue, actually has an issue dashboard, which enables you to just manage these issues from actually a dashboard. So let's say, for example, you have a sync, you are modifying something on your database, which cannot be inserted into Salesforce. For example, a phone number with wrong validation rule or etc. So Stacksync will actually detect this issue and display it to you into an issues dashboard. So you will never have silent issues, or let's say when you try to send a bulk API batch upload of records and only one record fails, so the entire batch will not fail, only the records which actually have issues will fail. And Stacksync will take this record and display them to you. It will alert you in real time on your email, Slack, WhatsApp, PagerDuty, Entry, New Relic, Datadog, all the platforms that you use for error monitoring, telemetry, etc. And even to any webhook, right? So you're going to be able to be alerted where your team is already on call and have alerts about these production systems you run on Stacksync.
Right.
So yeah, we will have a webinar. We have a webinar exactly following on this and going deep dive into how to manage issues from the Stacksync issues dashboard.
And to quickly build up on what Ruben just said, so far in the data industry, we're in the world of analytics. Okay, you have this data in the systems, you pull them into your database or data warehouse, do some analytics for aggregations, maybe not with machine learning, but it was analytics. So if some record fails, it was fine so far. But right now, we are entering into a new data age, the age of operational use cases, where you can finally build operational use cases, take real-time action based on an event in your systems. And this so far, it was very hard because of consistency about the silent issues that Ruben just talked. And with Stacksync, you can finally have a reliable infrastructure to build these critical operational use cases. Take a real-time chain of action of events that actually make something move, Our customer, when each API call that Stacksync make, there's a machine moving, for example, in Australia that is turning for each API call we make. There's cars being moved all around, You cannot have this fail. So you need critical, reliable infrastructure. And that's why we're here. We have another question, apparently, from chat. Yeah, I just interrupt. That's perfect. Okay, so I think it was great. Thanks a lot, Lindsay, for hosting. Thanks a lot, Ruben. I think we deep dive very to some of the problems that Stacksync was helping with. Looking forward to see in our next webinars or other problems that Stacksync can help you tackle.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for hosting me and Alexis. I just shared a link to learn more about us and actually to chat with us. So Alexis and I will be available at our email, ruben@stacksync.com, alexis@stacksync.com. And so feel free to chat with us anytime. We are also open to any questions. And so if you have a specific project you want to talk about, we'll be able to put you in touch with one of our architects. Thank you so much for joining. And Lindsay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, as a thank you for joining the live demo. Remember our exclusive offer tailored for companies ready to solve their integration bottleneck. A 14-day extended trial of Stacksync's Pro plan, ample time to validate it with your own data. Dedicated implementation support, direct access to our engineers, like an extension of your lean team, ensuring a fast start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon.
Have a great day. See you.
Thanks, guys.